Is vibe coding a threat to software developers? Is it over? No. Vibe coding is yet another tool that you can leverage. Now, the vibe coding is a brand new thing. And basically, you sit there and you talk to some agent and you say, okay, do this, do that, do this, do that. So what they're discovering is what I had mentioned what was going to happen when this first came out, is that they end up with a lot of spaghetti code. So you can vibe code some simple projects. You can vibe code some projects good for prototyping. But what happens inevitably, and I've been doing reading a lot of comments about this, people are actually using it. Of course, I knew this was going to happen. So you vibe code something, and then you got something working, so you're pretty excited. And then a bug shows up, and you're like, okay, we got to vibe code that bug away. So you vibe code that bug away, and then it breaks another 4 things in the application. And you go, oh my God, it's broke 4 more things. So then you go over there, and you say, hey, vibe code these bugs, buddy. And it goes in, oh, geez, I got to fix that. And then it fixes those things, or it doesn't, and then it breaks another 5 things over there. So you get stuck into spaghetti code, right? And that's a problem. Now, that is because those people are just doing ad hoc, unstructured, unorganized vibe coding, noob level vibe coding, which will lead you to destruction. So vibe coding is viable, but if you do it right, you have to provide a structure to the application, well, to the AI, and you have to segment your application into funnels, if you will, or into chunks. You got to chunk it up, and you got to give direction to the AI, the bots, so you don't have it do too much because it gets all entangling, and then you're not going to get any success out of that. It has to be structured well. If you structure it well, it could be very, very useful to you. So I have people in my mentoring group, for example, who were able to do, they're experienced developers, but they're able to use software. I think there was some part vibe coding and just part AI augmented coding. And they applied good architectural principles to their AI generated code. They had to go in there and do things. They had to know what they were doing ultimately. At the end of the day, they had to know what they're doing to get the result that they wanted. So one guy was telling me he took something that would have been like a year to a year and a half worth of work, got it done in like a month or two. I think it was a month. But he's an expert developer. He knows what he's doing. So he's able to apply good development best practices to actually get a good result from the AI. Again, this is not very different, in my opinion, from using, let's say you were developing a front-end UI, and you did a lot of vanilla JavaScript with CSS and HTML5, and then you decide to jump into React. React's got all this canned code for it. It's all ready to go. So it's saving you a huge headache by using React, right? It's taking care of all kinds of stuff for you, but we used to have to do ourselves manually. Vibe coding and all the other AI tools is kind of the same thing. Again, if you're worried about vibe coding or any type of AI taking away developer jobs, it's not so much taking away jobs, the developer job, it's changing the role of developers. When you went from vanilla JavaScript to React, there's a lot of code that was being written for you in the React library, right? When you went from, if you're doing full stack web, if you designed, what we used to do in the 90s, if you design your own end-to-end process flow, from the front to the back, and you wrote all your validation objects and all your data storage objects. You created your own caching layer, your own authentication layer. We used to write this code. And I remember back in the day, I used to say, this is stupid. Just about any member sites requires authentication. Should we have this standardized? This is stupid. All of these authenticating emails and protecting against SQL injection. Well, you do that with prepare statements. You get the idea. Pagination. That was a huge thing. Pagination libraries. Yeah, we don't have to do that anymore. So AI, low code, no code tools, these are just the next level of abstraction. What people are discovering is that just like the early PHP developers, they wrote terrible code because they weren't trained developers, and those applications were just a mess. Good software has to be maintainable and updatable, right? Anyway, that's how you do vibe coding. I was reading this article, I think it was from Red Hat. They were talking about it as well, and they're saying exactly what I'm just saying here. To be a good vibe coder, you have to be a developer. That's it. It's just, you're just a much more productive developer if you know what you're doing. The problem is a lot of people are they're taking it too far. They're taking it too far. They're trying to get the vibe coding or the AI to do everything in one big shot. What they should be doing is using their development skills. So you understand design patterns and architecture and clean code and making proper choices in terms of what APIs to use, what no-code, low-code platforms you might leverage, et cetera, and so forth. You got to take all these skills and use that to manage the AI. That's it.